Well, hello, everybody out there in podcast land. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Get Happy podcast with moi. Yes, it's me again, Rudrani Devi, and the crowd goes wild. So today, I am so excited to have some fresh meat on this podcast. My dear friend, Bharat Jani, who I met, I can't even remember, he's going to have to remind me when it was, but it was this year that we met at an SOP class and became fast and furious friends and have stayed in contact. And then he decided to leap into the world of becoming a Access Consciousness certified facilitator, y'all. And he only discovered Access in June. So, I mean, he's on the fast track. But let me not tell his story. Let him tell his story. So without further ado, Bharat, thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast episode. How you be? Okay, so we just had a little funny moment. Bharat was telling me that his Wi-Fi was a little unstable, and then I saw this lovely smile on his face, and it lived there for a moment. And I thought, oh, he's frozen, and then he disappeared. So we're coming back at you from mobile to computer. And so now, without further ado, Bharat, please tell the folks a little bit about who you are, what you do, and all the things.
First of all, Rudrani, thank you very much for having me. It's my privilege to be on your Get Happy podcast. I know in the past you have very notable speakers, right from Gary and everybody else in the Access Who's Who. And I'm really privileged to be part of this series that you carry on. And you bring joy to everybody you come in contact with. So I'm very glad to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. It's my pleasure, really and truly. I am so completely in awe of somebody that would choose this journey so quickly, because you guys, I got to tell y'all, becoming a certified facilitator in Access requires a lot. And I mean a lot. I mean, like, so many prerequisites. It's like,
true that.
You've got to step in with all of you to really choose it. And I mean, there'd be a lot more certified facilitators, my sense is, if there wasn't so many prerequisites. So please let me acknowledge you and your choices for creating, because you guys, he hasn't even been with Access for a year yet. And although I discovered it back in 2003, I didn't even leap in until 2011. And we were only in 2 countries at the time, and now we are in 179 countries, which is phenomenal. So wow, you are so welcome. And I feel so lucky, so privileged. How did I get so lucky to have you as my esteemed guest? So thank you. And please tell our listeners who they're listening to. Who is Bharat Jani?
Well, this is, I'll just give you a little background about myself. I've done my production engineering from Mumbai, India, and then migrated here in US in 1988. And since then, I've been living in New Jersey and worked into different areas. I worked as a production engineer, then had a business, then learned IT, did a service, did a job, and again did a business, again did IT. And then last year, somewhere around March, April, I went into the healing, alternate healing, started exploring more of energy modalities. And I was doing integrated clinical hypnotherapy. And I was talking to one of my friends in India, in Jaipur, where I think a few years back, Access had a 7 days event in Jaipur. So a friend of mine, Jalpa, so we were talking about integrated clinical hypnotherapy, and she said, I do hypnotherapy and I do Access bars. And I said, bars? I mean, the feeling, the notion comes, bars means like something to drink. And I said, what?
So it's true. And then people also think it's an acronym, and it's actually not, you guys. It's actually where there's a bar that runs between your fingers, And that's why Gary named it Access Bars, who is the founder of Access Consciousness. And if you're only listening for the first time, Access Bars is a modality where you have different placements on the head that when you place your fingers, lightly touch them, it's like a delete button, getting rid of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions that you have been either aligning and agreeing with or resisting and reacting to. So when you get a bars session, it's like having the best massage you've ever had with your clothes on. But I digress. Go ahead.
So normally what we do in hypnotherapy is we do induction. We take the client into a sort of a sleep. It's just like a sleep kind of a thing, but the client is aware. So when I said bars and hypnosis, I was like, is she giving something to the client to drink and go to hypnosis? I said, no, it's not that. I just have the client on the table and then I put my fingers on the head, and then for the client, it's very easy to go into the hypnosis. So the induction becomes very easy. And she said, hey, you haven't heard about it. This was November of 2020.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no, I haven't heard about it. And she said, just check it out. You must be having in New Jersey, New York. And I called 2 people. I looked at the website. I called 2 people in New Jersey. They had listed their classes, but because of the COVID, they didn't want to have it. And I took my first bars class in end of November. And then
You called people?
I called people, yeah, because it was Access website, right? So I would send an email, and there used to be a contact number. So I would look at the number and I would call them that, hey,
love it.
I want to take a class. You have this class? And they said, no, because of COVID, we are not having this class. Then another person I called and they said, oh, we are not having this class. There was a girl, Michaela Klein in Long Island City, New York. And I called her. She said, yeah, we have a class. And then I did a class with her. And then next month, one of the person whom I had called, Dr. Jackie Shu, she called back, says, last month you called for about, now I have one person who's willing to take class in person. So if you want to, so I did my second class in December. And then I did see what happens. Then another friend of mine, I was doing some workshop on thyroid, and then one of the participants says, oh, you've done bars, you have to take foundation from this particular facilitator. He's amazing, he's magic, phenomenal. And I just went with the energy. I said, okay, whatever. It was $1,600 for, and then the funny thing, this person was facilitating from India online, which was my New Jersey 11:30 p.m. to 6 in the morning. So it was like all night.
Oh my goodness.
I did it, and he was phenomenal. But I was like, I said, I'm doing it because a friend of mine told, and I'm just going with it. I'm in total allowance, I'll go with it. But your job to keep me awake. So except for the last day where I slept for 1 hour, but otherwise I was able to keep up, and it was amazing. And then I did my 3-day body class with Anthony in Damascus, Maryland. And then for 2 months, I took a break because I heard a lot of people saying, oh, this, anything I say, somebody would say, oh, but Access does this, or this, Gary says this, or this. And then it got too much. I said, I mean, before even I say something, somebody would say, oh, but Access does this, or Gary says this.
Yeah, here's the thing, guys.
It just took me.
I had to learn, but I had to learn just for me, just for fun. Don't tell anyone, because here's the thing, you guys, you got to go with your own knowing. And this is what, this is what I hear you saying. You follow the energy of it. And you were like, you know what? I like doing this bar. I'm going to take it again. And and now I'm being told about this foundation class, which bars is a prerequisite for foundation. So if you want to have more tools, you had to have had that class. And foundation is so different from what most people think it is, because they think it's about building a foundation, and it's really about destroying the foundation that you've bought is real and true for you. Because here's the thing, he's following his knowing, y'all. Instead of everyone else, these naysayers, well, Gary says, and this happens, and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, and in fact, and access consciousness is not for everyone, okay? You'll know if it's for you. So I love, so you took a little hiatus. You said, I'm going to take a couple of months
2 months.
off.
And then what happened? We had one bar swap event, and I took one of the access person. I was giving her a ride, Vanishri, and she facilitated me in the car. He said, why you have stepped back? And I said, this is the reason. He says, but you know what Gary and Dane says? They said, you go with your knowing. Don't even listen to us. So I said, did Gary say that?
Yeah.
I said, yeah.
He always
And
says
then
it.
she said, you just go, whatever is light for you. And that was the first time I used the tool of lightness. I had done the class, but I didn't use the tool of lightness.
Can you explain what light and heavy is for those that may not know? It's one of
It's-
my favorite tools, and I use it constantly from the moment I wake up in the morning until I go to bed. My body is the boss of me. It's like I'm my body's bitch. And
Mhm.
if it wants a cheeseburger or it wants an organic salad, it's like I follow the energy of whatever my body knows, because it knows.
Exactly.
And it's all because of this heavy light tool. So if you don't mind, would you mind just sharing a little bit about what that is and how that changes your world? Because that moment, it was like, you said you hadn't been using that tool, and we learn about it in foundation. Actually, we learn about it in bars, don't we?
Bars too, yes.
Yeah.
But see, what happened is the tools are there, and they are tools if you use them, right? And I wasn't using because I had my own judgment or conclusion I had made. As I learned from Dane and Gary, what's true for you will be light, and what's heavy is lie. And first time when I heard, I was not feeling any lightness or heaviness per se, but then the facilitator explained that you will have your own trigger to know when something is saying, and you say, okay, this one option. You may find some trigger in your body, you may find some lightness, or you may find something heavy. So just go with your knowing and say, okay, one or two, one. So that's light for you. So basically, whatever is true for you is light. Whatever is heavy is light for you. So go with your knowing, and it could be different for different people. So for me, whenever I'm at a crossroads and I'm choosing something, whether it's light for me or not, I either get some sensation in the body, or I just get a little lump in the heart saying that too heavy, or it's beautiful. It's just like, and now after the SOP, I just get little sensation in the palm saying, zzz. I say, okay, this is good for me. Here you go.
Yes, and every 10 seconds, because it can change. I mean, for me, I've noticed recently, it used to be that every time I was getting a yes for me, my head felt real, I felt lightheaded. But whenever I get a no or feel a heaviness, it would be in my chest also. Now it's like, yes, for me is my whole body gets so excited. Like when you see a 2-year-old that's getting, or 3-year-old getting ice cream, and they're like, oh my God, we're gonna get ice cream, we're gonna get ice cream. And their whole body just kind of like a dog, like the tail wagging the dog. That's what my body does. I was recently having a belated birthday dinner with two of my closest friends. And there we were at this really nice restaurant, and all of a sudden the I don't know, the owners decided to gift us a bottle of champagne. And I was so moved by it. And one of my friends looks at the menu, she goes, that's a $230 bottle of champagne. Now, we had never been there. We had never been to this restaurant. And this was just last week. And I walk in, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful place. And we're sat at like the best table, all by itself, with these two couches facing a table. And when I went to the ladies' room later and walked through the back, it was like all these tables, and it was really loud. They're all crowded. I went, oh my gosh. We told them it was my birthday, but wow, this is like over the top. So
nice.
But I was so overwhelmed by the generosity of spirit.
Absolutely.
That I had to fight the joyful tears. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so moved. I can't, wow, this is,
I know.
And it wasn't even one of those, monumental birthday numbers. It was just, and it wasn't even on my birthday, but it was one of these things where my friends wanted to honor me. And this was the only time we could get together. And so my body now, when it gets excited or there's a yes or something, it's this whole thing where my whole body's included. So know that this can also shift. So if it doesn't show up the way you think it is, you can always say, hey, truth body, is this now how you want to communicate light and heavy with me? Is this now yes? Is this now no? So it's
Wow.
very interesting,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Well, while we are on the subject of birthday, you mentioned you had your birthday and the person gave you. Today happens to be one of my very good friends' birthday, November 1, David Kube. Is Dr. David Kube's birthday today. So shout out
Oh,
for him. Happy birthday, David.
David. I'll make sure he I'll make sure to text him this episode so he'll have it as his spiritual. He's a
Awesome.
lovely being, you guys. So
Yes,
just a shout out to David Kupas, happy birthday, and davidkupas.com and all the things. He's the
absolutely.
financial
He's
advisor
amazing. He's
for,
amazing.
yeah,
Yes.
he's the financial advisor for Access Consciousness and an amazing lawyer and just a beautiful being. So
And also project manager for El Lugar. So
that's right.
this is, yep, so awesome. And so basically after that facilitation, I chose to go for COP with Brandon in Delray Beach. And I asked him a question because during the first 2 days, any question would pop up in my mind. Somebody else would either online or in the class would ask, and I will. So the second day evening, I went to Brandon. I said, Brandon, every time I think of a question somebody's asking. He says, oh, you're smart. You don't have to get up.
I know, it's true. We're very symbiotic that way in classes. It's so funny how people are like, oh, I've got to get a question and I've got to get a question. And then bam, somebody else perceives the energy of it and asks the question for them. And it happens in classes all the time. Even when I'm facilitating, it'll be so funny where someone will ask the question and then somebody else pops their hand up and says, I was just getting ready to ask that same question and then it got answered for me. There's this nuance, but how did we get so lucky? So what I love about Access, when you're willing to be all of you without a point of view, I don't have to be heard or seen.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come from that space, that energy, that consciousness, all of a sudden, the universe hears you and it delivers anyway. Isn't that cute?
It is cute. It is cute. So then the story continues in a sense that the third day, I asked Brandon that I want to follow that because on the call, there was 15 or 16 years old girl. She said, I want to be a CF, and she had done many classes. And Brandon just said that whatever contribution I can do in terms of facilitation, let me know.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, wow, such a generosity of spirit. So I asked Brandon in the evening, I said, Brandon, I want to follow the CF track, but there's so much of reference material you have to read and so many other classes. And in one of the sessions, he had mentioned the more you choose, the more you create, because the class was about choice of possibility.
Sure.
And then I told him that this class is it's amount of time that we have to invest, amount of money we have to invest. And what he was saying that more you choose, more you create. So my question to him was that if I am choosing all these classes, would it mean that I'm creating more and it will just come in? This is exactly. And that's what I did afterwards. Kept on choosing, kept on choosing.
This is what I love about it. It's so simple, people. Choice creates. Choice creates.
True that.
It's a matter of question, choice, possibilities, contribution. So when you have a question, all these choices pop up. Then that's where the heavy light tool really comes into play, because it's like, oh, this choice, light or heavy, this choice, light or heavy, this choice, light or heavy. So the question created the choices, then you choose and all these possibilities show up. And when you're willing to actualize, when you're willing to actually go into the motion of it, that's when the universe falls all over itself, y'all, to contribute to that possibility. So here's Bharat, and he is literally choosing more. More is showing up. And then what happens, my love?
Then see, when I read about Access and I did bars class, the video where we see Dane and Gary doing the bars and showing the points, at that time I had this desire, or I wanted to meet or attend Gary's class. And what would it take for me to attend Gary's class? And then there was ABC Advanced Body class coming up. So I needed another body class. So because I had already done COP, I had done foundation, and I had done one body class. So I did another body class with Grace, and then this advanced body class in Houston with Gary. That was my first meeting with Gary. And
My first meeting with Gary was with an ABC. Isn't that funny? Hollywood, Hollywood, Florida. And this is how it happened. It was so interesting because I knew that you had to take at least 2-3 days before you could do it. And I was such a superior asshole, you guys. I thought, oh, they don't realize I've been an energy worker for years and I know the stuff and blah, 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 blah. So I had taken one and I was bugging the crap out of him to get him to let me go ahead and take the advanced. And then I bit the bullet and I was like, okay. So I hosted a class and it was a big class, like 20 of us. And I get a phone call. And this is back when you had, rotary phones. Well, not rotary, this kind of phone, which doesn't,
Yes.
I don't even use this anymore.
Yes.
And I don't even know why it's still on my desk, but there it is. And all of a sudden I see in the ID, Gary Douglas. Oh my goddess, Gary Douglas is calling me. So I answered the phone and it's not Gary Douglas. It's somebody calling from Gary Douglas's house saying, Gary Douglas would like to invite you to the advanced body class that's coming up in Hollywood, California. I was like, well, that's fantastic. When is it? Like 9 days. All right. And I'm like, oh shit, how am I going to fucking pay for this class? So, because it was coming up really quickly, I had to get airfare, hotel, and of course the cost of the class. And this is, I don't even remember now, like 8-9 years ago. So I had a client that was coming and I was telling her about how much I really wanted to take this class. And she said, well, what if I were to pay for the class and then you just worked it off? And I said, well, that would work for me. So then, I didn't charge her for her session that day. We scheduled a couple of other things for other people in our world. And then I talked to my mother that evening. She goes, well, I have airline miles. If you want to use those, you're more than welcome to use the airline miles. And I'm like, wow, how does it get any easier than this? And I was like, okay, the only thing left is hotel. The hotel's booked. There is not a room to be had. So I reach out to one of the hosts because I go ahead and sign up for the class. This is when we had the really archaic website, access website. They get back to me. I'm like, it's like 2 days later. I'm like, I gotta go. I'd already booked the ticket or whatever. And I explained my dilemma. And they said, oh, there's 2 other hotels and there are people looking for roommates. So I found a roommate. Wow. She'd already booked the hotel room and I just paid her cash. And I meet Gary. I'm so excited to meet him. I know we're making him sound so fanciful. He's just an amazing being with generosity of spirit that Bharat and I wouldn't even know each other if it wasn't for the fact that this man created this movement, And I'd already written 2 books. And so I brought the books, whatever. I had all these fanciful ideas in my head and I have them on my seat. And all of a sudden I turn around and Gary's walking towards me. And I went, you're Gary Douglas. He goes, I am that. And I was like, I would like for you to have my books. And so I gave him my books. And then I also had these charms that my friends had made that said, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And I said, now I want you to have the sterling silver charm. And I know you won't probably want to wear it or anything, but he's like, oh, that's very generous. And so then he goes to sit at the thing. And I'm trying to be in the splash zone. I managed to get to the 3rd row of chairs anyway. And I remember when he paired us up, I was the second pairing and with somebody that it was well known in access. And you can't imagine, I could hear people's necks cranking to see who he was talking about. Because you with the red hair. I'm like pointing, I'm going, who else has red hair? Because at the time I had very pink, red, blonde, I had a whole conglomeration of things. Because as some of you know, I'm an entertainer and I'm a singer. And so I had that giddy up going on and false eyelashes and all this stuff. And I was like, so here I am paired up and I go to the front of the table to walk towards this person. And then there's Dr. Anthony Mattis and Dr. Andrew Gardella right next to us. And they introduce themselves. And it's like, we're just hanging the whole time. And I didn't realize that I was amongst royalty. All I knew is everybody suddenly wanted to be my friend. And it's a funny thing because in Access, we're really taught this whole thing about just being you.
Yes.
And all I was doing was just being who I be, which if most of you actually know me, you know that I exude that. I don't know how to be anything else than me. And it's made me a weirdo since the day I was born. You know, it's just now, since Access, or at least in the last half of my Access years, I'm willing to embrace it. I'm willing to be whatever's required. And that's what I love about somebody like Bharat, that just chooses so quickly. I mean, you guys, we look like a bunch of weirdos sometimes. We really do. And what if that was really our greatness? What if that was the power that we be, that this world has been waiting for? Instead of even people just kind of floating along, singing a song side by side, you know?
So see, all these years, Ru, I was making myself wrong because I did production engineering. Then I work as engineer. Then I had a business. I ran a newsstand in New York City, 4x8 small newsstand. Yeah, in 1989, 90. Then I
Look at how
did a
cute you are
business.
behind
I
your little
traveled.
newsstand. I just,
Yeah, I
I want to see
traveled.
pictures. Can you text me pictures of you in the newsstand? Because,
I,
and if, I know for those of you that can actually watch us on YouTube, because I know most of you are probably just listening, if there are actually pictures, I will put a link or something so you can see, because I want to see Bharat when he was behind his little newsstand.
No, it's see basically what all my friends, they would know that, okay, I want to become a doctor, a chartered accountant, engineer, and I would like, I want to do engineering, then I'll do business. Then I said, okay, I want to run a store. Then I did export imports. I traveled Caribbean islands and Latin American countries for 5 years, and again I learned computers and did work in the financial industry for 6-7 years. Then again I got fed up, and I like, so what's wrong with me? Everybody else know what they want to do, and they just go and do that, one line, one thing, and they make career 35 years, 40 years. And every few years I'm changing things. And then I came to Access, and I realized that you are humanoids, you change things. And I said, it's not my wrongness, it's my strongness. I just choose something different. So here I am. I've done so many jobs, so many businesses, 2 times I've done IT profession changes, learned a new skills and go into the industry and work for 10 years. And then last year, I think one of the things we all have seen, what this whole people talk about COVID, and we have created so much during that, all the online classes. And I got to learn all this thanks to the situation that we were in. So I'm very grateful to all these things, and especially, how adaptable Access has been to accommodate, all the online classes, live classes, all those.
Well, and it's interesting because you discovered it in COVID, and we were already, by the way, you guys, I was already teaching on Zoom, but 2020 was my breakout year. I was so excited about 2020 because I was supposed to teach in all these different countries.
Mm-hmm.
I already had people signed up. I'm like going, I'm making bank. I'm definitely getting a pool in the backyard. I mean, I had all these points of view about what I was creating. And then COVID happens. And I would have never guessed that I would have created so much more because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing about, well, this is the thing about me. I'm going to do whatever's going to create the most. Whatever's going to create the most, I follow the energy of it. Sometimes I'm creating for the future, and I don't know the difference energetically in a sense. It's like, yes, go ahead and plan this class. And then if it doesn't happen, I realize, after the fact, I've created for the future. Something is going to come of this later, because I have taught classes online where people knew who I was from before and said, oh my gosh, I had met you at when we were in Germany or whatever class I was taking. And I knew I wanted to take a class with you, but I didn't know how I was ever going to get to the United States. And then you had this class online, and I knew I had to take it with you. And it was like that meeting created for the future. I mean, the last foundation class that I taught, I had a woman in Australia that was originally from Taiwan. I had 3 people from Brazil. I had one from around the corner in Alabama, because I'm in Tennessee, and another person in Colorado. And
wow.
I know, it was like I had across the planet. And then I also had, and the woman in Australia, I said, you win, because she was starting at 5 a.m, which for us was, I was doing an evening class.
Okay.
For people that work regular jobs here in the States that want to take an evening class. And so I was beginning at, I can't remember, so either 3 or 4 p.m. and it was her 5
Okay.
a.m. I was like, how are you doing it? She goes, well, in Australia, it's getting warmer and the sun comes up and we're awake. And I remember when I took Right Voice for You with Christopher Hughes, I had for the one for facilitators, I had to take it in person. And it's true. I mean, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm hearing birds screeching. It's daylight. And it was amazing because I was there for a class, but I spent a couple of days prior and about 4 days afterwards just to be in that space. And it was so amazing. Access has changed my life.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And as you rightly mentioned, that you being you, I mean, the stress that Gary and Dane puts on is that, I mean, nobody is greater than you, above you, or below you. It's just, you being you is a contribution to the planet, to this universe. And during the SOP where we were together in Houston, I was doing one session, SOP session with somebody, well known in the access field. And I called Dane and I said, Dane, what do I do? I said, what? Why are you making him? Is he your guru? Come on. I mean, you just be you. And
I got to stop you for 1 second. You've said Dane so many times and I haven't mentioned him yet. Dr. Dane here, you guys, if you're listening for the first time, is the co-founder of Access Consciousness. And he's the reason why we have a lot of these body processes, really and truly. So he was facilitating this SOP class, which is Symphony of Possibilities. That was my 4th Symphony of Possibilities class. So, and they just exponentially get bigger and grander and all the things. And I'm curious, who was this notable access person you were training with? Just
I was trading with Brandon Watt.
Oh, well, heavens to Murgatroyd. Let's just drop some more names. He's a lovely being, by the way.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just like then Dane, Dr. Dane comes and says, why are you making him so significant? You do your, work. You are you as an infinite being. Why are you making anything else significant? And then I said, oh. So that's when I realized that these tools that, we hear Gary and Dane speak, we listen to lots of YouTube videos and we think that they're saying something, but they're so congruent. They talk about it, they follow it, and they lead us to use those tools.
Absolutely.
So that was the time when I met you, and I was like, wow, what an energy. Yes.
You knew me also through a mutual friend of ours, though.
Yes, Manishi had mentioned that Rudrani, because you had a history with India, and you were, during, I mean, most people know your story, but you were shot, and you are a fighter and a survivor.
I have a big story, y'all. As most of you know, but if you don't know, just Google Rudrani Devi, Nashville, and you'll get 250,000 hits. It's kind of weird. I can't hide anymore. That's okay. And that's fine. And it's funny because I met her at my first SOP. And before Dane and Gary moved to Houston from Santa Barbara. And it was such a beautiful facility. I was like, wow. I shared a house with 3 other people taking the class. And so we were Ubering every day because, again, I chose it at the last. Oh, no, I remember now what happened. So funny. I didn't know if I could get into the class because you had to have 2 ESBs at the time. But Dane allowed me. Should I tell on him? I had gone to a sex and relationship class in Houston, Texas with Gary and Dane. And it was the first time I had met Dane. And he didn't know who I was. And Gary, I don't remember exactly what happened. I was asking the question about something about India with what had happened and all the things. So somebody introduced Dane to me, like at the 11th, like the class was ending and they wanted me to take a picture of me and him. So I did. And they said, you need to know her. She was in India and she was shot by terrorists. And he was like, well, let me do this little thing. And he did this little thing at me. And I was like, and then she said, do you want a picture with him? And I was, sure. it was my first time meeting him. I mean, every question I asked in that class was directed at Gary because Gary was my guru at the time. Anyway, but it was so funny. Dr. Anthony Mattis, I did a session with him, and he said, you should really get to the SOP, and I'd already taken an ESB. And there wasn't another one offered in time for the SOP, and you have to have two. Energetic Synthesis of Being, y'all, is ESB. SOP is Symphony of Possibilities. Two different, similar, different energies. And so I'm like emailing him directly. I'm doing before I could text him, and I'm like, I want to take your SOP. I promise I'll take the next ESB. You've got all the things. And he allowed it.
Oh, nice.
He allowed it, and it was amazing to have that experience and to have that trust and knowing. And I get, it was like with Gary saying, you have to have two three-way body process in front of you. I get it. So it was it touched my heart that he actually allowed that. But anyway, I don't know why I went into all that story. I made it so significant just then, and yet not at all. We admire these gentlemen because for us, the generosity of spirit that they have, because they literally, I don't know what your point of view is, and I'm going to have one in this case. They kind of, they're living their life to save the planet and for us to know that we can be who we be without apology. And that's the beauty of access, is that, hey, you guys, the tagline is really, facilitating that you know what you know. All of life comes to you with ease and joy and glory, and to let you know that you know what you know. If you will just trust you, don't even trust me. It's like what I said earlier about Gary and Dane. It's like, don't trust what's coming out of my mouth. If it's heavy for you, it's not true for you.
Exactly. And funny thing, sometimes you listen to some calls, and there were some, I was swapping with someone, and she was playing some class that she had attended, and I'm listening, Gary facilitating, and Gary's shouting us, what are you doing? Are we married? You're not listening, you bitch, and all that. And I said, oh my God, this guy is obnoxious. This is like such an arrogant son of a bitch. And all of these things. And then when I attended the class in person, and when I see him, the energy with which he's telling is totally different.
Yeah.
So it's like when you hear something required.
It's the piece. It's like this. I'm considered like Simone Milasas. She's known as being very kind in her facilitations and all of this. And I'm more or less known as that type of person as well. But if I know that it's going to create more for me to be a bitch from hell, I'll do a wedge and walk. And I think that's the reason why I understood Gary so well. Because when I met Gary, online in person, because I did a level 2 and 3 with him back when that was COP. Choice of possibilities. And I just connected with the way that he facilitated people, because I got that sometimes you have to do a wedge and walk, which is basically someone says something, oh, I keep choosing these guys that abuse me. And I'm like, and he would say something like, yeah, how's that working out for you? And then, because it gets them into question. True. And you've got to start with a question. And so I totally dug that. And then with Dane, I felt like he's trying to be too nice. And yet it's funny that I get pinpointed as being the nice girl, I'm the happy lady. But here's the thing, if I perceive that it's going to create more in your world for me to give you a wedgie, I'm going to do it. I do it with my mom, and I adore her. It's like, I'm like, I'm not going to give up my life for you. And I'm willing to lose you. If you're going to, do this and this and this and have a stroke, then whatever. But because I know it's your choice, and I'm going to acknowledge your choice. I wouldn't choose it. And this is how I talk to her, my mother, that I adore, in case you hadn't noticed, y'all.
Yes.
And, but I'm not going to be her significant other or insignificant other.
True.
All the things. I can go on for days and days and days with you. I have to ask you at least this one question, if you don't mind, because this is the question I ask all my podcast guests. Bharat, how do you get your happy on?
Well, I love nature. I love sunrise and sunset. So I try to, weather permitting, I try to be near, like this particular summer, I've been to the ocean probably 100 times.
What?
Sunset or sunrise. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're close to the ocean. I forgot.
Yes,
Now I'm
in
jealous.
Jersey Shore. It's about 45 minutes drive, but we would drive up and look at. So that's one thing, like to travel, like to meet people.
And bars
And
trades. I've seen pictures on Facebook of you doing bars trades
yes,
on the
bar
Jersey
street.
Shore.
Yeah, we
So
had one
sweet.
bar street on Jersey Shore. Yes, exactly. So that's one thing that keeps me. And I like to travel. I
Are you doing
enjoy.
much of that right now during COVID? Are you getting some travel in?
I've done a lot of traveling. I've done all the classes in Houston, Florida. And then I did the CF training in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
And I like when you were so sentimental talking about
Wait a
Gary.
minute. We met at CF training.
Yes,
We met there, and then we did COP. Oh gosh. Okay, never mind. We were in Puerto Vallarta together. That's right.
Yes, but
We've done a little traveling this year, so don't think it can't be done.
Yes, it can be. And then I was fortunate enough to even attend. See, I was listening to all this, and the Lazy Douglas and Dane Ranch. And there was a 7-day, after the COPN, I had done ESB and SOP. I got a call from Brett and says, Bharat, you are invited to 7-day event in the ranch. And I was like, whoa, what would it take? Because it was in my horizon, in my universe, that what would it take for me to go to the ranch? And then there was like 7 days of Gary and Dane facilitating this advanced class.
I am a little jealous. I was in the class, but my mother had just gotten out of the hospital for pneumonia and bronchitis, and I had no caregiver to come facilitate her. So literally I bring her home, and then I took the 7-day beginning the next day and facilitated.
Online. You were online, yes.
I was online, and I taught a relationship done different class online in the morning in Turkey, their time. So I was teaching that in the morning, doing the things with Dane in the middle of the day, and then doing the 7-day from there evening on. It was like, and here I just got her home and in bed, and I'm like, okay, so I'm checking on her like 15 minutes here and 5 minutes there before that. That was, gosh, I was so high. That was such an incredible, that was an incredible class, the 7 day.
Exactly.
Oh.
It was,
wow.
And then another 7 days coming up on the,
Are you doing it?
Video. Not yet. I'm not chosen as yet. So we'll see. 10 minutes increments.
Absolutely. I'm actually facilitating, so I won't be choosing it this time. But before I was always invited to the 7 days, and I was always performing.
Oh, nice.
It was interesting because there are a lot of people that already thought that I was a maestro and that I had attended a 7-day. And I was like, no, because Access always decides to do classes at the spur of the moment. I was always scheduled out for a whole year. And there were a lot of classes I could not take because I had already committed, and then with COVID, my whole world changed. I wasn't performing. I mean, everything got canceled, including the classes I was facilitating. And that made it more possible for me to actually facilitate online, be on classes online, and more people got to know who I was in the boxes, in the Brady Bunch boxes. So, anyway,
Excellent.
I'll tell you what, my love, I could go on forever and ever. You're coming very close to the longest interview I've ever done on the Get Happy podcast. If you guys are still listening, thank you very much. So if people were going to find you, my love, where could they find you? And we'll make sure we have all the links.
Absolutely. See, one is on the Access website. I'm a facilitator, so they can look at Access Consciousness website. I have my bharatjani.com website in works right now. It's getting revamped, so they will be able to find me. They can find me through Facebook or Instagram. Awesome. And I'm so grateful to you, Rudrani, for giving me this opportunity. And
this has been an amazing. I'm immensely grateful. This has been an amazing conversation, y'all. Look at this beautiful man. Well, those of you watching on YouTube. I mean, the joy that exudes from your very being is such a contribution. So thank you for that. Thank you for all of your knowing and for being you. I mean, we've been taught to be everything but ourselves. And I love that you just leaped without even thinking. You just chose it. So I want to acknowledge that. And if there was one last thing you would want to leave our listeners with, what could that be?
Everything starts and ends with choice. Whatever in your universe is your creation. And if it doesn't suit you, doesn't work for you, you can choose to change it, destroy it, and create it. It's just a matter of choice. And choice is one of the biggest gift that we as infinite beings, individuals, humanoids, humans, we all have it. So choose,
True.
choose, choose, choose. And
True
be in the
story.
question.
Choice creates. Hey, by the way, choice creates. Choice creates. So if you'd like to create your life and living, maybe start choosing it. Hey, and if you liked this podcast, subscribe. There's a button below. Guess what? It's that easy. If you know of others that could have enjoyed this conversation as well, or it could be a contribution to them, please share. And if there's something that, like a conversation that you would like to know more about, you've been tapping into access, and there's something that's, kind of pinging in your world, reach out, ask below in the comments, because I do read all the comments. And I'm so grateful that you have a comment. So, woo! All right, then. So until the next Get Happy podcast, y'all. And thank you, Bharat, again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Ciao, ciao for now.